Hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for part 2 of this Isekai fantasy manga haul. This really wasn't meant to be a 2-part manga haul, but I think the end footage ended up being like an hour and a half long, and I don't want to do a whole bunch of cutting to try and get it shorter, and I didn't really want to try and do super long videos anymore, so I've decided to just split it out into 2 parts. They're still going to be decent length videos, I think, but yeah. I really hope you enjoy my second half of the haul. Next, we have volume 6 of I've Been Killing Slimes for 300 years and maxed out my level. I am actually a bit behind. I haven't read volume 5 or volume 6. I actually started to get a little bored around volume 4. I'm not sure why, because I was mostly enjoying it and I loved reading volume 1. I got really into it, and then it just started sort of dwindling. I feel like they've stopped paying as much attention to the weird, insane powers that the main character has, which is the witch lady here, and it's just sort of about the other characters, which is fine. It's just, it wasn't originally why I got into the series, so I'm not too sure. I'll keep reading it, and I'm hoping it'll improve a bit. I really quite like the art style, it's super cute. Super cute. Next, we have JK Haru is a sex worker in another world. This is quite dark and quite ecchi, unsurprisingly. So in this story, our main character, which is Haru, and a classmate of hers get isekai into another world. So there's her and the other one is Dude. He's loving it. He's like, I'm becoming an adventurer, I'm doing really well, it's great. And the only work she's been able to find is in a brothel. And it's very dark. It is not like Call Girl in Another World is like a weirdly jolly version of this, I suppose, whereas this one is a lot more dark. Some of the patrons don't treat her well. It's very much trying to just survive. She hates what she's doing, but she's not sure what else she hasn't really got many other options. So I did weirdly enjoy it because of her and her viewpoint, and about her talking about how she's trying to get out of it and why it's not okay, and it just, yeah. This is not for the faint-hearted, is what I'd probably say. I think it's a light novel as well. I wonder how a light novel will tell the story. Yeah. On to a more lighter isekai. We have Kuma 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 Bear, Volume 4. This is super light-hearted, jolly. She's very OP. Her whole... what she's trying to do in this volume is she's trying to help an orphanage of children be self-sustaining, and so they can earn some money as well, so they can try and afford better clothing, because she's like, I could just keep giving them money, but I might not always be around. She would rather try and give them a way to do better, and it's just super lovely. And she's very strong as well, so she like sometimes like helping the children, then she goes out and just fights something by just punching it. Her whole like power, skill set, skills, everything is based around like bears, and it's just super cute. She has to wear this onesie all the time to get her powers. I really like this is like, I really enjoy it, but I wouldn't say it's like top tier, but it's quite good. So I do like keep an eye out for new volumes, but I'm not like, oh my god, new volume of Kuma Bear. Yeah. Level 1 Demon Lord and One Room Hero. This isn't an isekai, but it's kind of like if a fantasy world clashed with modern day Japan, I suppose. So there was this Demon Lord and the hero beat him up, and this is like set 5-6 years later, and the Demon Lord is like kind of woken up, but they've not like fully restored yet, and the hero is now sort of a shut-in. He just eats, sleeps and watches TV, plays video games, doesn't do much, and they kind of cross paths and the Demon Lord is like, no, we need to get your life back in order, and it like is moved in with the hero to like help them shape up, I think. So it's kind of sweet. I feel like it was a distinct sort of average series. There were points that made me giggle, but it wasn't like ha 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 ha. It was like eh. So it's another one where I'm not really rushing to pick up more, because it was fine. It was okay. It was amusing a bit, but also a bit dull at the same time, if that makes sense. Ooh, next we have ReMonster Volume 5. Now, I quite like ReMonster. It's kind of like, if you don't know of it, because I don't think it has a light novel, and I don't think it has an anime. I'm not sure about the anime, actually. It's kind of like That Time I Reincarnated as a Slime, except instead of being reincarnated as a slime, he was reincarnated as a goblin. But it's the same, like, so reincarnated as a slime, he absorbs enemies to gain their skills. In this one, he eats them, and he gains their skills. Actually, I suppose, like, Some Spider So What is similar as well. Yeah, like that. This one is a little bit darker, so he doesn't really have much qualms with, like, eating humans, and there's a lot of darker storylines. They're a bit creepy, and but I like how it's told, and it's still like maintaining that like skill tree so he keeps leveling up. So he didn't always look like this. He looked like a little sad little goblin, but he's like leveled up, and he's gaining more powers, and he can do insane things now. And it's like, but it's weird. I feel like it's a story where he's always OP. He's always like top of his game, and he's just sort of, he's then more top of his game, and then he's better, and then he's better, and then he's better. And it's like, where is there still to go? Oh my gosh. This one got a bit weird though, I'll be honest. There isn't much I can say without it being completely mega spoilers, so I won't say it, but there are some bits that happen in this volume that were a bit weird, and I wasn't expecting it. It doesn't release very often. I think it's like a volume a year, and volume 6 comes out shortly, so I'll be able to pick that up and continue and see if it still gets weird or it gets weirder. Reborn as a Space Mercenary, Volume 1. There is a lot of Volume 1s. I'm going to count at the end how many Volume 1s there are. So this is... he reincarnated on a spaceship, like, in the middle of nowhere. I think it's in a game that he's played, from my understanding, if I recall correctly. So he vaguely knows, like, some lore about the world and stuff. And he's kind of just trying to figure out a way of getting a bunch of money. So he tries to find a spaceport and then sell like some things that were on a ship that were just there. And he ends up gaining a couple of like crewmates. And it sort of ended on a cliffhanger at the end where he just offered to partake in like this attack on this base where they hired a whole bunch of mercenaries, and he was like, yeah, sure, why not? And that's where it's ended. But I don't think a huge amount else happened. I think this is one of my average Isekais. It was probably a bit above average. Probably gave it like a 6 or 7 out of 10. It was fine. It was jolly enough to read. It was actually quite nice to read an Isekai that wasn't fantasy. Not saying I don't like fantasy. Love fantasy. But I think it definitely stood out for me because there aren't many I've read where it's not fantasy at all. So, yeah. That's probably all I have to say. Rising of Shield Hero Volume 16. A series I'm up to date with. I do like Rising of Shield Hero a lot, and I was very excited to see this in Forbidden Planet because they had it like a month earlier than Amazon was supposed to ship my copy to me, and I got it for cheaper. Wonderful. So this arc has gotten a bit weird. I don't want to say too much because it's way ahead of the anime, and maybe not too many people started to read the manga. They're sticking with the anime, so yeah, I don't want to spoil it for that reason. But it's gotten a bit weird. I'm so, like, I really enjoyed this volume. I'm not entirely sure what's happening though, I'll be honest. I'm like, eh? And then there's like another cliffhanger, so like every volume's got a cliffhanger at the end, which is one thing I love and hate about Shield Hero volumes, because it seems I just want to binge through them, but now I can't, because I'm caught up. I haven't even looked when volume 17 comes out. I'm hoping it's this year, but we'll see. We'll see. Next, we have a very long title. Roll over and die. I will fight for an ordinary life with my love and cursed sword. This one was a bit gruesome. This one was a bit... Alright then. I don't remember a huge amount about it, to be honest. I'm having to flick through it to try and remember. I believe... Oh, that was it. So in this fantasy world, so they're not an isekai, this is a fantasy, and in this fantasy world there's a number of people that have these like skills that do things, and our main character, which I think is this one, has this skill called reversal, and it doesn't really do much of anything, and people with skills are meant to be renowned, they're meant to be all powerful, and she doesn't really do much, and they kind of want to try and get rid of her. And she kind of ends up, I think, is she in prison? And she gets a hold of this cursed sword, basically, and because of her skill reversal, instead of being cursed, she's like powered up by it, and she's able to escape, and she starts like trying to just earn some money by the end of it. This was an average fantasy for me. I think maybe I just need to read a bit more because I quite like the premise and the whole like special skills and hers being reversal. Is it she? They? I'll say they. But this felt like there was a lot of just setting up on like explaining the skills and getting the main character to the point where they were OP when they weren't at the beginning. So it's also got a really weird title. So I'll keep reading that and see how I do. Next we have She Professed Herself Pupil of the Wise Man. Right, so this series is like a video game isekai where this person used to play as an old man, and they were playing around with like what do they call them in games? Like where you change a glamour appearance, and like for funsies they made themselves one that looked like a little girl, and then something weird happens and they can't change the glamour back, so they look like their main character, which is an old man. And then it turns out like a whole bunch of time has passed, like a number of years have passed, and he can't 30 years have passed, he can't change back into the old man, he can't get out the game, and he's just trying to figure out what's happening. And in this game it turns out that when he was an old man, he was like a cluster of all powerful players or sorcerers, and they all disappeared at the same point 30 years ago, and a couple have returned since, and now he's come back, but no one believes that he's the sorcerer, so he's going around saying that he's the apprentice of the sorcerer, and that he manages to say things that only the sorcerer would know, so people like vaguely believe him, her, them, dude in a girl's body. And he catches up with some of the other sorcerers, and they take like one look at him like, yeah, I know, you're the old dude, aren't you? Yeah, I knew it. And we see some fights at the end. They show off some neat powers, but otherwise not a huge amount has happened. It's been primarily story setup. I would again say this is an average isekai. It's fine. It was amusing, and I kind of liked the weird... He was like one of so many sorcerers, and he was specialised in a certain type of magic, and they're trying to now see if they can find the other sorcerers, and that I find intriguing, and there's a whole bunch of skill trees and stuff. So yeah. And it has a light novel. Has a light novel, if you're interested. Can't quite see, but we're nearly done. We are nearly done. So next we have Slow Life in Another World, I Wish, Volume 1. This was like a definite average Isekai. It was like, I wasn't wholly sure what I felt about it. This dude is like, he's Isekai and he wants a slow life, and he's given an option of a whole bunch of like skills he can choose from, and he chooses a skill that like generates money, but it generates money based on your skill level. So he's like, oh, that's super low skill, so it only generates like almost nothing a day. But he's like, I'm gonna skill it up so I can just generate money and then I don't have to work. And then some weird things happen. I can't remember quite what, but he ends up with some people indebted to him, and they decide the only way they can repay the debt is if they put themselves in servitude to him. And it just felt a bit weird and yucky, and they were like assessing the goods, and yeah, he was really quite uncomfortable, it seemed, and they were quite uncomfortable, but they were like, it'd bring dishonor if you didn't, I think. Was he uncomfortable? I can't remember. But it just felt to me when I was reading it. So I'm not going to rush to pick up more volumes, but I bet they won't come out that quickly anyway. We'll just see. We'll see. The Strange Adventure of a Broke Mercenary. I haven't read this one yet, though it is actually in my TBR basket. I had to pull it out for the video. I legitimately know nothing about it, except I saw a title like that in Forbidden Planet and I was like, yes please. So I don't have anything else to say because I know nothing about it. I've not even read the blurb on the back because that's cheating. We don't do that. No, that's a lie. I do that all the time, but I've just forgotten to do it on this one because I put it straight into my basket to read and I was like, well then I'll just jump in it. But I've not gotten to it yet. I'm so sorry. I've let you down. We have 2 volumes of Suppose a Kid from the Last Dungeon Boonies Moved to a Starter Town. Volumes 2 and 3. So I read volume 1 and I loved it. It was so good. Basically this kid who is on the cover, there he is. He grew up in this town of like descendants of like heroes and legendary heroes and that sort of thing. Heroes. And on their level, he's a bit shit, but compared to like an average person level, he's actually like insanely powerful, but he doesn't realise. He thinks he's a mess. He thinks he's weak and can't do anything. So he moves to the main city in the country to try and become a knight. And his chief from his village has arranged to go stay with an ex-pupil of hers, and he turns up to stay with her. And she's like, oh, okay, so how was your journey? And I was like, oh, it was like 4 days of travel. And she's like, oh yeah, the trains aren't great. And he's like, no, I ran. And she's like, you can't run from there to here in 4 days. And he's like, oh yeah, it's not that bad. And she's like, that's insane. That's insanely powerful. No one can do that. And he's like, oh no, like the grandpa in my village can do it in 2 days. I'm really weak. I should be able to do it faster. And she's like, the grandpa in your village can run that in 2 days? And he's like, yeah, I'm so weak, aren't I? And she's like, what's wrong with all of you? And it just sort of rinse and repeat with the whole story. And there's a whole bunch of shenanigans that like happen, so he doesn't think he's that powerful, or he doesn't pick up on the fact that he's that powerful. Like there's a whole blight of insects that attack the city, and like the guards are out and they're trying to evacuate, and he's just walking down the street going, oh, the bugs are bad this time of year. Smack, and like just crushes one of them. He's like, I need to get to the shops. So I've read volume 1 and 2. I've not yet read volume 3. But I will do shortly. It's hilarious. It's another one that's not an isekai, it's fantasy. But yeah, Trapped in a dating sim, the world of otome games is tough for mobs. So our main character is this sad little dude back here, and he was on Earth, and his sister was like, can you please play this otome game for me to get me to this point, because I haven't been able to and I'm out of town for a while. Please, I owe you one. And he's like, okay, fine. And he gets into it a bit, and like it's like a weird cross of a strategy RPG and a dating sim, and he loves the strategy RPG side, so he like really gets into it, and he like buys some fancy armor and fancy ship or something because there's ships in it. He ends up getting transported into the game, and it's a bit of a weird game because in this world the sort of inequality between men and women is flipped, so it's women who have all the power and men are just like, they're there. They don't really have much to them. So in his family, I think there's 2 boys and 2 girls, and the 2 girls get like all the nice stuff, they're treated well, whereas the boys, they live in a shack and they're just there. And he ends up going to this fancy school and sort of starts to witness the otome storyline. So he isn't like any of the main character, he's just a background character, but he's witnessing like the events occur, but the events start to occur wrong. So instead of like the girl who's meant to be the main character, it ends up being around someone else, and he's like, wait a minute, what's happened? What's happened here? And he starts trying to figure out what's going on, while also like exploring and looking for neat things with his ship. And it's a bit weird, like, I think I enjoyed it, but I was just very baffled because it almost felt like it couldn't decide what it was. But based on the otome game, that felt a bit like the point. So it was a dating sim and a strategy game, and I kind of felt like that's what it came across in the manga. It was like, am I this? Am I that? Don't know. But I think I kind of liked both parts of it. There's so many questions that need answering, but it was, I kind of want to say it was an average isekai, but also it wasn't. I'm unsure of this one, especially thinking back and flicking through it again. Because I pitched up, I was like, this was an average, and then I flipped through it and go, but I enjoyed this and this and this. Maybe it's not. Next, we have Uncle in Another World, Volume 2. I haven't read Volume 2, I've read Volume 1 though. I wasn't sure if I enjoyed Volume 1, but I'm not sure if it was I didn't enjoy the story, or I'm not sure I like the art style that much. Like, some of the cutesy bits are really cutesy, like the cover, oh, that's such a nice cover. But then some of it I just didn't get on with as much. And I'm not sure why. Because I think I did like the story. I think I did. I'm not sure. It's a slightly pricier manga as well. It's yen pressed, but it's like matte, which I feel like always ends up costing a bit more. So I didn't rush to pick up Volume 2, but they had it in Forbidden Planet. It's a 3 for 2 price. Finally, the final volume in this haul is Who Says Warriors Can't Be Babes Volume 3. This is the final volume in the series. This is another fantasy, not isekai. And I've only read Volume 1 so far. The whole premise is this girl was rescued by the hero when she was younger, and she sort of fell head over heels for him. And then her whole mantra was like, I want to grow up to be someone that can protect the hero. So she's like, I'm going to become a warrior. But also she's a bit of a babe. And that's like basically the story. There's a whole bunch of weird hijinks in Volume 1, and it was just super silly, and I thought it was great. And I couldn't believe it was a 3-volume series, though actually no. You know what, thinking about it I can, because I feel like a lot of series like this where it's just really silly and a bit of a comedy, they can't really easily go on for that long. Can't wait to finish this series, and I hope it stays as funny through Volumes 2 and 3 as it did through Volume 1. So that was the Isekai fantasy haul. that was quite long. That was probably longer than I expected. So I might actually split this into a 2-part video because I don't want to cut out a huge amount, but I also don't want it to be one really long video. I was really trying to not do those again. So yeah, this might turn into a 2-part Isekai fantasy, and this probably will go at the end of part 2 if that's the case. So if you haven't yet gone and watched part 1, go watch that one. Surely watching part 2 without part 1 is really confusing. Why would you do that? And yeah, thank you so much. I'd love to know if you've read any of these, and if there are any of these that you would want to try after my glowing recommendations. Also, are there any isekais that I've not mentioned that you want to recommend? So I do have a lot of other isekais, but if there's a small chance I haven't picked it up, then please tell me, because I love isekai. Can you tell? Oh, I was going to count how many volume 1s there were. There are 22 volume 1s. That makes up about half the haul. Goodness me. Oh my goodness. Yeah, wow. Wow. But yes, thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, because there's going to be a whole bunch of other mega big hauls coming up that I assume I might need to cut down if they're all going to be this long. So there might be a whole bunch of hauls in part 1s and part 2s. And even once I've done those, the hauls will keep on coming. I do more review videos, a whole bunch of those sort of things, and more live streams so I can chat. That's always super fun. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye!